But your goal should be to be as good as you can be where you are, when you are, and what you've got to work with right now. If I can become excellent over time, I can reach level of success. No question.
Here we go. Let's do this.
We've got one life, one shot. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? Addicted to Betterment, a podcast to inspire us to keep going, to try something new, to dream, to think big, bigger, to overcome. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Back here today with one of my favorite humans, Coach Richardson. Man, Coach, great to be back, and I am so excited for today's session, covering a huge topic. Interestingly enough, at this time of year, it's a topic on everyone's mind, and so excited to cover that with you, Coach. Today, we're going to talk about goals. I know that you may or may not have experienced the thing of setting a goal and then never achieving it. I'm sure you've probably never experienced that. I have more times than I want to admit. So thank you for giving us some of your time today. And I'm excited to be coached on the idea of goals and how to set them properly.
It's got to be a great session, I think, David. One of my favorites in working with mental training and certified as a mental performance coach, I have what's called a mental toolbox. And when I work with athletes or adults, makes no difference, or parents, we start right here with this one as a part of our mental toolbox. And that's simply an objective that we want to accomplish. Now, we've been building a base to that, you and I, in our coaching to this point. There has to be a passion here to have a goal. You got to want it, right? We have to have a passion. Then we have to have something bigger than just a passion. We have to have a purpose, a high purpose, a driving force that will carry us to that goal. Then we need to break that down into a vision of being able to see that goal, be, do, have, and give. We covered that in our last session, how important that is, that we build this foundation. And then we get to this point in our coaching that we're going to really say, okay, let's get it in writing. This is the goal setting. Goal achieving is our next session, but we got to set them right first. Okay. Let's go back to your experiences in having goals. I know you're a goal achieving individual, but where'd you first get started with goals? What's your background?
That's a great question. I just remember, even as a young man, always wanting to be great at what I did. Or actually, if I'm going to confess to you here, Coach, I always wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the very best at what I did, and often would do whatever I had to do to be the best with whatever talent that I had, whether it was basketball or just whatever. I just found how powerful for me the idea was to set the carrot out there and then to just go for it. And I think someone like myself just is constantly pursuing that next carrot. So you got to keep moving the goal a little higher just to try to keep getting it. And I've always loved studying, even as a young man, and even more to this day. So the greatest in sports or the greatest in business, even I think of the great presidents or the great athletes, people that have achieved an exceptional level of success in life, and trying to figure out how they did that. And honestly, for myself, trying to emulate that to achieve goals.
David, did you get any input from your parents about goal setting way back to beginning time? Were they goal setters? Did they encourage you?
That's a great question, Coach. If anything, they set the goals for me, and then maybe I got punished when I didn't achieve them. How's that?
All right. Yeah, I got some of that. Go make the bed, Tommy, before you leave, okay?
It's interesting, though, that you just asked me that question. I wasn't prepared for that question, but the honest answer is that they set the goals for me. You will do this, or you will get this done, or you will face the consequences if you don't. So I guess that's how I learned to set goals.
That's an interesting question that I have to ask myself. That my dad was in the business world, and he gave me business suggestions. Go call on that person tomorrow. You got to get to him quick. We're going to bring him into our business. He worked in the restaurant business as well as a movie. So I got a chance to learn business, but I learned really the depth of goal setting from my mother, who was a coach. And one of the things that I have installed in my coaching, doing coaching that I do, athletics early, is the concept of helping the young individual while you still have some impact with them at home, to set goals and set them in the proper way. And I do a workshop called Developing Champions, where I talk to parents, coaches, business leaders, whoever it might be, that they are developing in one of the starting places to get the kind of development that you want. There has to be this goal, this motivation to be able to move. So that was my start. And I still start all my mental training sessions with the first toolbox in mental training is goal objective. How do I set and how do I reach a goal? So it's a very powerful concept that needs to be taught early.
Yeah. So, Coach, I wonder how many people give that much thought into the process of setting the goal. When you asked me the question, again, I wasn't prepared for it. How did I learn to set goals? Did my parents force that on me? And again, the answer is, yeah, it was kind of forced on me. If I didn't achieve them, I didn't want to face those consequences. They were never good. But moving forward in life as we become adults, giving that much thought to the process of setting goals, I'm anxious to hear from you, Coach. How would you help me identify what goals to set and then how to set the proper goal? So let's talk about that. I want to learn more about that.
Sure. We start with building that foundation that we talked about. We got to have a sense of purpose. We got to have passion. We got to have that vision of the goal. So when we start building that foundation, it's like going up a ladder, bang, 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 bang. We get to the point there that, yes, I know. One of the questions that sometimes pops up, people don't know what they want. It's the biggest question. When I start working with someone one-on-one, it's, okay, what do you really want? What are you trying to achieve? I'm not sure. I think I want to go this way, that way, this way. Okay. So helping that individual get to that, what do I really want to accomplish? Then we work the steps on the building the foundation to that to get very clear about it. And then at some point we get to this step that we're talking about today, David. We've got to what I call goal setting. We've got to get it in writing. We got to get it in our mind. We got to get it on paper. And then we come back and we'll cover this one on our next coaching session. How to achieve it? And we'll talk about the benefits of it. But I'm going to move here to hear from you a little bit, because one of your things that I shared with you for you to mull over and to think about is goals that you have set in the major areas of your life. One of the things we talk about, you can have too many goals. You can't get them done. But if you can see, this is a wheel. This is a great place. If I'm working with people, I was with a young coachee yesterday. We started right here. He'd never seen the wheel. And I said, you need to take a big look at your life based on where you are right now or where you'd like to be. So we go through the wheel that you've been through, and then we pick maybe 2 to 3 areas. We can't have all of those as a goal and be able to have the achievement that we want. So we go back. My assignment to you was pick a macro goal in one of those areas that you felt you really needed to set a goal in, and then fill that in with a micro goal. That's the action. The one thing is the macro. My action steps is what I call the micro goals, the micro steps. So let's just jump in here and take one of those areas that you have set a macro goal. That's a big one. That's my mission in that area. And then a couple of micro goals that you set in that area.
So, Coach, you threw me a curveball. I'm excited to ask a little bit more about this. So someone like myself and someone like my wife who is just driven to achieve big things and probably set big goals. And then once we think it's a big goal, we try to elevate it, make it a little bigger goal. I thought I just heard you say that I can have too many goals. So if I understood you correctly, Nikki and I also use a practice called the Life Wheel. It's on our website. You can check it out. We have our version of the Life Wheel. So we do a practice where we go through the entire life wheel. For me, it's 8 sections. And I look and I actually set goals for every area of that life wheel. So you're saying, hey, David, that's too many goals.
Let me speak to that. What I'm saying is you got 8, but all 8 are not the same priority. And it goes back, and I'm giving you some background because you know I've taught and still use a lot. 7 habits of highly effective people. Habit number 2 was begin with the end in mind. Okay, that's what we're doing here. what I want it to look like. 6 months and a year. Most people are looking at a year, but bring it back to 6 months, break it down. But the second thing, the next habit number 3, is put first things first. What the wheel does for me, it says, whoa, this one needs to be first. I got 7 things. I got 8 goals. Good. They're all great. And my thought on that one is, simply coming from my experience, I'm not going to go backward in any of them. I'm going to have at least a 1% growth in all of them. I never want to slide back, whether it's talking about my health or career or whatever it is. I don't want to go back. I'll have a 1% goal. I'm going to do what's continually working for me, but I'm going to pick 2 or 3 of those that, man, I want to drive. That's my one thing. Does that make some sense?
Yeah. Thank you, Coach. I think that'll help me a lot.
Good. One of the reasons we'll talk about it, that people don't reach the goals, they've got so many goals and none are important. They're in the gray area, right? This comes from the Way of the Seals, a study that I've done and taught it. They simply said you have a front sight focus on one thing that you're going to drive it. You're going to drive it. You're going to drive it. Now, if I get these other things, great. When I hit my mission, I'll move to another. But I have to have that priority focus. Now, I'm in the process, and I'll use this next week entirely for my life planning. I've done the wheel again. I've gone through all of the different steps. I'll nail down my top 3 things. Now, here's another thing. I'll nail down my top 3, and then I'll go to my top 1.
That's good.
Yeah, my top 1. And for me, it's total wellness, health and total wellness. That's my top thing right now. Because I've got to continue to build my energy and my stamina to keep me going. Look, if that's my top 1, then I know I'll be able to fulfill my goal in my relationships, which is my 2, and my spirit, which is my 3. So I've got to really do the focus part, which most people don't do. They'll give you some time to think about that top 3 or top 2. It doesn't have to be 3, but it needs to be no more than 3 of my top focus for next year.
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive into the process of setting these goals, Coach.
All right. Let's go with this. Now, one of the things that we talk a lot about is the why behind the what. If there's anything I think that really makes sense when you're teaching and coaching and whatever you're doing with someone, is to make sure you tell the why behind it. Let's dig just a little bit of why this goal setting process is so important. So important. You even shared at the very beginning some things that you found that made it important to you. Let me tell you the reason I think it's the most important thing. And this didn't come from me. This comes from research that I've done. Why it's important. If you just grab onto this one thing, I think it'll raise your whole goal setting process, that you become better and stronger at it. It says 2,000 years ago, a philosopher by the name of Aristotle. Read a lot about Aristotle. Here's what he discovered 2,000 years ago. That establishing of a desired outcome, a goal, a purpose, that the establishing of a desired outcome is the one and maybe the most important motivator of all human behavior. Think about that one. Okay, let me say that again. That is so powerful. The reason that we need to help people get into goal setting, help them see the value of it. But it's simply this. Aristotle said 2,000 years ago, he discovered that the establishment of a desired outcome is the one and maybe the most important motivator of all human behavior. He called it a drive. We don't accomplish anything without a drive. We don't get out of the bed in the morning without a sense of purpose or a goal. We need that in order to achieve as a human being. So what's more greater than that, than a reason for doing it and really building on it? It's also the enhancer of all our performances. To get into the zone, you cannot get into the zone of high performance unless you have established a high objective goal. Makes sense, right? We got to do that. So that's some reasons behind the why for the what. The what is setting it and achieving it, and it's my motivator. It's my motivator. We have people every morning that get up and they don't have any motivation. Why? They don't have any goals. There's nothing to work forward toward, right? So they settle into complacency.
Yeah. Some people struggle to have motivation, and some people who have high motivation, it's easy to lose it and you're trying to find it again. So I figured out the why. Let's use an example that someone says, I want to start a new business this year and I want to make $1 million in that business. Or let's apply it to health. Someone says, I want to lose 35 pounds this year and I want to be able to run a 5K. And both of those goals, both the financial career goal and the fitness goal, seem to that person a stretch goal. So give me examples of how I go about tweaking those goals. I know why I want both of them. I know how the importance level of how they are in my life. I'm very clear. This is what I want to accomplish. This is how I want to do it. How do I go about setting those goals properly?
Okay, here's where I use the formula, and it's out there, and I picked it up years ago when I really got digging deep into goal setting and that's what's called the SMART goals, SMART. And I want to run through those because this is one of the reasons that people don't hit their goals. They haven't set them right. If I was fitness or business, makes no difference. The first thing, that goal has to be specific. That's your if. I want to look better. Or maybe I want to start a business. Well, what kind of business? Can't have a general goal. It has to be very, very clear and specific. You're not going to hit it if it's what I call the fuzzy area. Right? The M is measurable. And here's where people really break down. They have the goal, but they don't have a system created to tell them where they are on the goal and how they are progressing or how they're going backward. Or not progressing, might be a better way to say it. There's no measure. I can go to my gym bag and I've got 4 books of probably the last 4 years of all my workouts. I measure each one. And it's simply the date, where it was, what time it was, what my warm-up was, what my first exercise, what weight I used, how many reps I did, how many sets I did. I've done that through the years, and I can look back because now I'm measuring what I'm trying to accomplish in that physical area. It's a measurement, and it doesn't have to be that detailed, but some way you got to see where you are or if you're making progress at all, right? That's the M. SMA, okay. The A, as I think about it, the SMART in A, it's got to be actionable. You got to be doing something to reach that goal. It's the action that you take on that goal. You know, I can have the best goals that are all written down, but I don't do anything. They're not going to accomplish it, right? That's my action. And in our previous discussion, that's my macro goals usually that drive that macro goal. Those action steps that I'm taking, the micro goals. The R stands for, in some people, realistic. I don't like that word realistic. I like it riskful. Think about the difference. Realistic, it's not definite enough. There's no risk involved, so I'm probably not going to hit it. Here we'll talk a little bit about the concept that we got to have high, hard goals. HHG. High, hard goals. I got to have a risk. Keep on doing what you're doing. You keep on getting what you got. You got to make a risk, okay? Got to get out of that comfort zone. That's the R. SMART. Time bound. I can't have forever to do it. I can't have forever. I've got to set myself a time bound. A lot of people will look and say a year. Well, that's okay as a starting point, but you got to break it down. Do you know the best time frame for accomplishing a goal? What would you guess?
I'm guessing a year, but for me, it's a day.
You're right on. If I could take that yearly goal, that's a good place to start. That's what we call an outcome goal. Okay, that's where I want to be. But break that down into what? Quarterly. Yes, I'd write quarter goals. Monthly. Yes. Weekly. But the greatest thing you got going for you in the goal setting process is have a daily goal. To-do list, that could be it. But every morning in my devotion and my habit time in the morning, I'll have a goal that I'm writing for, like 1 or 2 goals that I want to get accomplished today. So I break that down to the daily part. That's the best time management system that you can have. SMART. Now this is Tommy's part. And this came from business. I believe it's General Electric. First came out with the first SMART. So I looked at that and I said, okay, all of those are great in writing your goals, but I want to add something else. SMARTB. Want to guess what this stands for?
I have no idea.
Balanced goals. If I want to be all that I can be all that God has given me the ability to do, I can't do it in just one area. Can't have just one goal fitness. I've got to have a balance of my goal. And that's where I look at, okay, and do I have a balance between my career, my business, then going with a career, my relationships, my family? All of those needs to be a balance. 7 habits of highly effective people that we've talked about. Starting in the soul, I'm continually looking at those areas, physical, mental, social, spiritual. And do I have an objective in trying to accomplish those? Back to our discussion earlier, David, that looking and having a 1% goal in all of those areas is very important to me. I'm not going to go backward. If I see myself slipping due to my measuring it, then I'm going to pick up the pace.
That's great stuff, Coach. I'm learning. I'm writing as fast as you're talking over here.
I'm just trying to set the stage for you to really get deep into that goal writing process that you'll be doing before we get back together. So that's what I call the SMART WB acronym, which will help them. Now, here's some key things in writing the goals. What we've already said.
Would you say there's different types of goals? How would you break goals up into different types?
Share with me what you mean by types. We have the wheel. That's a type of a goal.
I've heard you use the term process goals and outcome goals. Help me understand that. And then what are some of the priorities as you're setting those? Any other tips you would give us?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because this is so critical in the writing of the goal and then the accomplishing also. It's the process versus the outcome. And then for me, even doing this thing for years, this is fairly new. This probably came on when the concept of flow and zone came to the forefront. That's about 70s and something. Everybody thought of an outcome goal. At the beginning of the year, I want to be here. That's my outcome. That's an outcome goal. Nobody talked about the process goal. The process is the steps that I get to the outcome. Short, maybe a week, maybe a day, but they're processing. I'm moving toward the outcome goal, and I set process goals along the way. Now, here's what happens, and I see it in the athletic and business world too, because people keep looking at the outcome goal. I want to make $1 million. All right, I'm not even where close. Now, when they keep looking at the outcome goal and they're not progressing, they lose their motivation. If that's too far out, man, forget it. See the difference? If I can take a young athlete and say, look, you're not there yet. And I continually talk to individuals, athletes too, about their potential to get there. Not that they're there. We make a mistake sometimes. Man, you're here, you're already there. No, I'm not. I want them to understand you have the potential to be there. So the process goal is your potential that you're carving out every day, every workout, every sale that you make. Those are the process goals.
Man, that's good. That's good.
That motivates me. I look at my goals and I get this, whoa, that's a heavy, high goal, right? But I'm making process. That's when you really need to sink in and make sure you're doing the process goals.
Sure. So often we set a goal in a moment of inspiration. So it's a moment of inspiration for me. It's early in the morning and I am just going to conquer the world today. And I'm going to achieve all these things. I'm inspired. And that goal is big. And then by 2:00 in the afternoon, man, that goal seems overwhelming. What was I thinking? And I think a lot of times we do that at the beginning of the year. You see on social media and all the outlets, this is going to be my best year ever. And internally we think, I'm going to conquer these demons this year. I'm going to break this habit, or I'm going to achieve this measurable target that I've had for years and decades. This is the year I'm going to do it. And then by the time we get to February, March, as we all know, one, we've maybe even forgotten the goal. Two, if we haven't forgotten it, we ignore it because it's so overwhelming that we're just like, okay, that sounded good in January or at the end of December, but never mind. I'm not going to achieve that. So if I'm hearing you, the importance is not in that outcome goal that you set. Yes, set it big, put some risk in it.
Terminology you've heard me use a lot since we've been working together. That outcome goal may be my North Star.
There you go.
There we go. That's my North Star. But to get there, I've got to get from this star to this star to this star to this star, right?
Yeah. The importance is in those process goals. Set your outcome goal, make it the North Star, make it big. But then really, when you get super clear on that and then set the process goals, that then you're just breaking it down into these small goals that you can achieve regularly.
It's a great motivator, but I can't look at that. I've got to look at how am I moving toward it. So that's very, very critical that you look at the process and the outcome goals. It's crazy. The things that I'm sharing, David, are so pertinent to the business world. I can remember going back and entering the business world. I had a goal way out there. But my manager at that time never talked about what I needed to do next week and the next week and the next day, and the next day. He overlooked the process goal. So in a leadership role that you're in, make sure you're talking about process goals to get you there. Okay, what have we done last week? That's accountability. That's things that will help you grow. Now, another one here that I want to share with you that I've learned this through the years and more that it is coming to the forefront. Your goals must be, remember that word, hard, grow. They need to be challenging. Remember the SMART? I changed that to a risk goal. You got to stretch you. All in sports psychology says that your challenge has to be greater than your ability, or you're not going to grow. You're not going to reach that high goal. Now you can reach by doing nothing, some goals, but my challenge always needs to be greater than my ability. Where the challenge is higher than my ability, that's the sweet spot. That's where I have my best performance. Now, that challenge in the athletic world is 4% greater than my ability. Now, think about it. If I'm operating just in my ability, I get bored. I can do this stand on my hand. This is the reason today in the business world so many are leaving their job. I'm not challenged. We need to make sure that as a leader of an organization that we're challenging our employees to grow, not kill themselves, okay, but make sure that there's a growth process for them to grow in that business. People leave their jobs today because they're not challenged. I can give you names. They're not challenged. They're bored.
This could be a leadership conversation here. You know, it's a leader's responsibility, one, to set that outcome goal soon enough that gives the person that you're leading time to get clear on the process goals to achieve that. Communicate that outcome goal clear enough so that someone who says, man, I want to go after that, I can get really clear on the process goals it's going to take to achieve that. And then collaborate with, help. And then once you've done that as a leader and you've done that properly, now your job is to lead that person, support, cheer, coach, guide to help them. And it blows my mind how many businesses just don't even get that, hey, let's get this goal out here soon enough. We're going up on the end of the year, and it's highly important that a business set the goals for their employees so that, man, we can go into this year off to the races. And we've got the process goals that we have to have in place to achieve that. You got to do that right. That's number one as a leader. Number two is once you set those goals, now do all the things necessary to equip that person to hit those goals.
And in that process that you're developing them, moving toward their outcome goal through the process goals, you've got to be able in a leadership role to help them to recover when they're not hitting that goal. It could be mindset. Could be they're not following through. Okay. But as a leader, I've got to speak to the consequences of the situation when you're not moving towards your goal in a process way. And a lot of leaders dodge that, or they come across too critical. Hell, you dropped the ball again. Well, you might forget this. those kind of things that are cutting the legs out for your employees and athletes. Well, let me mention one other thing that I wrote a book about it. And the book that I wrote, Building to Excellence, when I came to the concept that excellence is more important than success. A lot of people say, I want to be successful. Well, you can be successful if you work on your excellence enough, but your goal should be to be as good as you can be where you are, when you are, and what you've got to work with right now. If I can become excellent over time, I can reach a high level of success, no question. So I wrote the book, Building to Success. And I changed the title Success to Excellence. Building to Excellence. And this is the difference between having a goal, I got a goal, and I'm growing. Because if I'm growing, I have a long-term opportunity to be excellent and then be successful in the time that I'm in. But if I'm just looking at success and hit my goal, and this happens a lot of times, I hit my goal, so I just quit, man. And I'm guilty of this. I hit my goal and I don't set another goal. But if I say I hit my goal and that's great, here's what I did to get there, but here's my next goal. That's my growth. Am I growing? Okay. Because if I'm growing, I'll continue to be successful where I am because I am excellent what I'm doing. There are a lot of areas we can't be successful in however you measure that, but I can always be excellent. Excel. Over here on my board, I wish you could see it. It's Excel. By the way, I want you to think about your word for next year. My word's going to be elite. E-L-I-T-E. Elite. And that first E stands for energy, effort, and excellence. And I want to be elite. I want to be excellent at what I do. But that driving toward excellence will give us the growth, which will give us the success that we're trying to achieve. So your concept that I'm trying to share with you here is that growth is more important than the goal. The growth is more important than the goal. We're back again to the basics. We talked about looking at our wheel. Am I growing in these areas? Yes or no in the process. So that's kind of the things that are really behind this process of establishing the goals. Now, next session, we're going to come back and look at goal achieving. We looked at goal setting. Okay, that's the first step. You got to get it down. You got to write. I challenge people, and I did this with a group just last week, this next week after Christmas, spend some time in your life planning. Pull out your wheel. Look at your word. What's my word? Have I really condensed that and got that in my mind for next year? Do I know what that is? What's that one word that will drive me and give me the excellence that I'm trying to accomplish in all areas of my life? So get really clear on your life planning before you go into 1st of January. Don't wait until the middle of January and say, well, I'm not really sure. Get a fast start into the new year by doing that. So if you work on that next for the time that we're apart for our next coaching session and really kind of work on here's my life plan. Here's the things I'm working on. Going back to the day, the things, your macro goal and some micro goals that you want to accomplish. Work on your one word. You don't have to have it down. Most of the time I get my one word after I've got my goals down, but think about your one word. And that comes from a writer, actually I call it a virtual mentor of mine, John Gordon, has a whole book on it, the one word. And that is so important that we drive with that. And that will kind of be our driving force for our next session. And we'll work into those, the goals that you set. We'll come back and look at the concepts around that. Is it a person's goal? And all the things we talked about today. We covered a lot of territory. I do a whole half a day on goal setting and goal achieving. I call it goal setting, goal achieving. We got to set them first, then we got to do what we need to do to be excellent to achieve those goals. So I've kind of talked way too much this morning, but I think I got a feel for where you are to dig deep into getting really your life plan in order that we can move forward on our next session coming up.
This is good stuff, Coach.
Well, I hope it's beneficial. One of our goals is for you to be the best coach that you can be by coaching yourself, and then coach those people around you with the kind of things that we teach it back, right? That's what we talk about all the time.
This is good. I'm excited to set some really good goals. So you just listened to this episode. Now, join us in being addicted to betterment. Please subscribe to the show, share with your friends, tag us, and please take a moment, leave a review. Yeah, we do want your stars, but we really want the feedback.